Hi all, in this session we are going to cover how to use locators in different way. Writing automation script is not very time consuming process in robot framework because it's a keyword driven thing. It's very simple and easy to use, but most important and I would say rather time consuming part of it is populating or finding the locator of your element. Okay, so this is not just a challenging thing for robot framework, but for any automation tool. If you use it, you have to make sure that you provide a proper locator. Now, what is locator? Start with that. So locator is a way to identify a particular web element. Okay, unique way to identify a particular web element. For example, if we have this field on this page, okay, so I have a password here and then web address. Okay, so take the real world example. If I want, if in a Saba I want to identify some employee, so how will it be done uniquely? So either HR is gonna say, okay, employee ID 1234 or whosoever it is, like using some ID you're gonna call it, or you're gonna call a name, say Vinay Patel. Okay, so that is how you are going to call you identify the employee. Okay, but what happens if I have a duplicate ID which is not possible in the real world scenario, but in case if there is duplicate ID, then calling employee ID 1234 is gonna lead to multiple employees. In case of the name, just like if someone is gonna say I want to meet Vinay who is working in Saba, and then in Saba if there are multiple Vinay, probably they have different surname or whatever, but just by that it's not gonna work. Okay, so that is how the same principle work in the web page also. So whatever locator you are using has to be unique in the page. Okay, so ID is one of the examples. So input tag is here. If you see this example, this password field has input tag which is ID is equal to password which is unique across the page, so it's going to work here. Now I have another page called web address. It has got name, it does not have ID. If you see this page, this tag, it does not have ID, so it has name. Okay, so if I have name unique, name is equal to web address, then it's gonna work perfectly fine for me. Okay, now there are cases where you will neither have ID nor nor your name. So in that case, let us see it here. Okay, so I have got this link syntax. Okay, so if you see this tag here, anchor tag, it does not have ID attribute, neither name. So in this case what we are going to use is we are going to use what is visible. Okay, if it is a clickable thing, so we are going to say link is equal to syntax. Okay, that's what we are going to do. Okay, so let's cover so far whatever we discussed. So I want to click on something, I'm going to say click, and then ID is equal to password, so it will click on the password field. Okay, and if I say name, then of course it will look for the tag which has got name is equal to password, and then it will click on it. In case it is not unique, say there are multiple tag with name is equal to password, then it will take the first one, whichever comes first, it's gonna interact with that. Okay, in robot framework, if you don't give the locator type like ID or name and just the value like this, so it's gonna find out whether there's any element which has got ID is equal to password or name is equal to password. Okay, it's gonna find out that way, and it's gonna interact to it. Another thing that we discuss is link. Okay, so it's very plain and simple thing. Link is equal to, okay, it's going to find out the exact link. It's a case sensitive, so you to make sure that it matches exact line to line or word to word thing, and then it's going to click on the link. Now the problem with the link is it does not go well with locale. What is locale? So if I have a website that supports multiple language, say right now my website is in English, and I'm converting the page into Chinese. Okay, now I'm just clicking on that link which says show the content into Chinese. In that case, syntax would be called something else in Chinese. The visible text would look something different in Chinese, so it's not going to work. So ultimately, what would be the most reliable thing? Okay, what should be the most reliable thing? So if you don't have a unique ID, if the first two things are most considered to be most reliable in the industry, ID and name. But most of the framework, JavaScript framework that people use, they use dynamic ID most of the time. In case of name, they don't take efforts to give name properly unless your development team is taking care of it from the beginning. But most of the time it has seen that it doesn't work that way. Like most of the people don't name your element properly. So that comes the next thing, that is called XPath. Now what is XPath? That is the path or the address of the element with respect to something. Now what is that something? We are going to discuss that part. Okay, so there are two type of paths. Okay, absolute path and relative path. Now what is absolute path? If you are telling your address, like somebody asked me where your office is, Sabah, so I'm gonna tell him, okay, where you are right now. That person is gonna tell me I'm at airport. So then I'm gonna tell him, okay, from airport take your cab and then take left turn, and then you'll see take second right, and then you'll see a traffic signal, take the from second traffic signal take your right, and then like that. Okay, and then comes Sabah. So that is how I'm gonna give the driving direction. Okay, so that is called end-to-end address from starting point to end point. That is known as absolute path. So if you see, I have this plugin installed called Firepath that comes with Firebug. So you have to install Firebug first and then Firepath. Okay, now I have to find out what is the position of this input text. So I'm going to click on this icon. I'm going to take it here. So it's going to tell me, okay, first of all you are going to see HTML tag, inside that you're going to see body, inside that you're going to see div, that is first div. There are multiple divs. It's going to give you the index for this element always start with 1, not 0, unlike any programming language. And then there's a main tag, inside that there's a selection tag, second selection tag. Okay, inside that there's a form and then there's a field set. Okay, and then there's a paragraph like first P and then input. So that is how your path is defined. That is known as absolute path. Okay, end to end. But it does not work all the time if your page is little dynamic. It's dynamic. So say this link are going to be they're dynamic, they are not constant. So sometime I'm going to see 5 elements, sometime I'm going to see more elements, or in a table or wherever it is, say in this form. Okay, so in this form the number of fields are not going to be constant. Sometimes there are more fields going to appear out here, sometimes they are going to not. So then absolute path is not going to work here. For that, what we use is called relative path. Okay, now what is relative path? Take the same example. If someone is asking the address of Sabah, so I'm going to tell him, okay, where are you? So that person is going to say, okay, that's fine, but if you can tell me the direction from say station, okay, railway station, I can come down to Sabah. So that guy knows how to reach to railway station, so I'm not going to bother, wherever he is, it's fine, just come down to railway station, and from that point you are going to tell the address. So that is called relative XPath, that you're giving the address with respect keeping the railway station in mind. So that is like, from railway station take this, take that. And so if tomorrow even railway station shifted from one place to another place, right now it is located somewhere in Shivaji Nagar, so tomorrow it is moved to say some other place. So then from that place the paths would be like that. Sorry for the wrong example. So from railway station to that path, the path is going to change because railway station is constant. That person's address may change. So right now that person would be staying in area XYZ, which takes 15 minutes to reach from that place to railway station. Now it's going to take 2 minutes because that guy is moved nearby to railway station. But I should not bother about that because I'm keeping the railway station in mind, which is going to be constant, and so the sub office. So that is how relative path works. Okay, So let's take an example how the relative path looks like. So there you go, it looks like this. Okay, so it says, from wherever, let me tell you what does this mean. Okay, so this slash pass indicates wherever on the page. Okay, star indicates any tag. Normally this star is meant for this type of tag, like if I say input, okay, then it will look only for the input tag. But if you are not bothered about that, you just say star, any tag which contains id attribute and its value is text. Okay, so here if you see this, so I have got where's my need to come down actually. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I have got this field which is got id is equal to text. Okay, so whenever you are using any attribute, you have to make sure that you are prefixing with @. Okay, attribute has to be prefixed with @. That's a thumb rule. Okay, so if I want to split that XPath, okay, I have to write this double slash, then your tag type. Okay, this will be first thing that will come here, say tag type, and then inside always it will be in square bracket your attribute equal to your value. That is how it is going to be. If you don't know your tag, you can simply say star and then it will refer to all the tags. Okay, so that is how the relative path work. Now there are, in the real world also, there are different way to tell the example. Okay, so sometimes you tell that, okay, if you are looking for specific restaurant, so and you don't know there's no nameplate of that restaurant out there or board out there. So what somebody is going to tell me, okay, you take left turn in that lane, and in that lane whatever building which has a red door or probably that kind of thing. So basically we are giving some characteristic, or so those kind of thing are there. So let us see what are the different things you can do in XPath. Okay, so sometime what's gonna happen, your id is your attribute is gonna look like this. Okay, you will have id but it is dynamic. Okay, it's gonna say name and then there is some random string all the time. It's gonna do like this. So your name, this part is going to be constant, but this part is dynamic. So if you are going to say this is like this, input, and then something else out here. Okay, I'm going to say input and then @id, and see, since this part is always going to be changed, so you are going to say it should contain name dash. Then I'm not bothered that what the other thing is, so I'm going to say contains and then id, and that's it. So it is going to find out whether name is there in the string or not. So it can be like this also. Okay, even if it is like this, it's gonna be okay for it. Like if it is finding name in the beginning and in the middle, somewhere in the string, it's gonna find this the IDs, the value of id is gonna work. But if you want to, if you are strict that it should be in the beginning only, then you can say instead of contains, you can say starts with. Okay, then it will look id that start with name dash. If it is ending with, you can say ends with. Okay, so that is how you can find the value of attribute using some level of pattern matching. That is what we can say. Okay, next is say if this tag is like this. Okay, input and then say hello and then slash input. So what are you going to do about this, because this is neither any attribute of any tag, it doesn't belong to any tag especially. Okay, I mean inside it. So in this case what we are going to do is we are going to say the special way of identifying this is called text. Not special way, but that's how it is. So we are going to say text equal to hello. Okay, that's it. Now same rule applies of excuse me, same rule applies of contains, starts with, and ends with text also. So either you can say this text is equal to hello, or then you can say contains text and then comma hello, and then or start with or end with. Okay, that is what you can do all the time. Next part is called okay, so I was discussing about a relative path with respect to something. Okay, now let's take an example of this element copy button. Okay, now if you see what it does, it says, okay, on the page find out where this button with extgen14. Okay, so it's basically finding somewhere there is some element with this. Okay, let me cut down this part. Okay, so we'll know what is this element is. So this is basically this entire list. Okay, so you can see this highlighted element. So go to this list which has ext gen something something, and inside that there is third div. Okay, so if I expand this, this is first div, this is second div, this is third div. Okay, so it says div and then third, and inside third div you will have span element, span tag. So this is your span tag, and then you will have first div. Okay, so what it is telling that with respect to this, so this is the, if you take the railway station example, from railway station you are telling the path. So similarly you're telling the path of some specific element which you can identify it easily. You cannot simply say third div, because there are a lot of div available on many places. So you are going to say, okay, this specific point, this specific element, go to this place, and from that take third div, and inside that third div you will have a span, inside that span tag you will have first div. Okay, that is how we are identifying the tags. Now sometime what's going to happen, you are not going to the information that you are looking for would be somewhere uh, inside, and you want to look for the element which is above it. Now let's take an example. Okay, I have an example of a page where I have got this course title. Okay, let me show you the page structure first of all. Okay, so it has got a span, okay, that contains, if I expand this, it contains course title. Okay, so now I want to click on this arrow. Okay, so if you refer to this arrow, it just contain I and then class is equal to field option. That's it, there's nothing else. There's no other way you can identify this arrow uniquely. Okay, like if I take this, this I also says the same thing, this I is also going to say the same thing. So for that, what you're going to do is you are going to say, okay, find out something that is like find out this text wherever it is, and from that text, okay, like find out an element which is in this case a span. Okay, go to a span which contains a text like this, which is a course title. Okay, once you go here, and then this is, you cannot say slash, because you cannot say span is equal span and then your text equal to your whatever it is, then you can use slash, because it's not inside span. Okay, this image is not inside span, but it is at the same level. So basically it's a sibling. Okay, so when it comes to a sibling, there are two type of sibling that comes. One is that comes before the tag, and that comes after the tag. So the same thing that comes before the tag, like before span tag, is known as preceding sibling, and the one which comes after it calls following sibling. Okay, so if I want to use it, I'm going to use it like this. Okay, I have a ready-made example created for it. Okay, I'm going to say go to span text course title. I'm just going to cut this thing for now. Okay, so it's going to take me to this course title. Then I'm going to say, okay, go to following sibling. Following sibling what? Okay, so I'm going to say following sibling of what? There can be multiple sibling. Okay, so in this case there's only one, which is I, but there can be sometime it's div or this and that. Or let me show you the example of the same thing. Okay, so if you see this, there are a lot of sibling out here. Okay, No, yeah. So if you see, this table has sibling called this div, this div, this div. Okay, so you have to say that table has a following sibling, which is div, and there are two divs, so you have to give the index as first. Okay, so you are going to say following sibling, and in this case I'm going to say I, and since there's only one I don't need to give index, else I can also give it index like this, and it's still going to work fine, because it's gonna say okay, from this element whatever this span is, it's following sibling. Okay, and then you have to give this colon, and then the tag whatever it is, and then its index if it is necessary. Okay, similarly if I want to access this thing whatever it is, I don't think there's a visible text for this, but if it is, all I have to say is preceding sibling. Okay, so it's going to select this. Okay, rather than this it selected this. So that is about siblings. Okay, so you can use sibling where your elements are at the same level. Okay, and you can go up and down. But what happens if you want to go up or down in a hierarchical level? Okay, so say I have this span. Okay, so I have this span, and let's go in different way. That's it. Okay, so I have this span, and I know that this is the reliable element, and I want to refer somewhere here, or some, let me take a live example. So let me add this filters and dimensions. Okay, so this is a checkbox I want to refer to. Okay, now what can happen, there can be multiple filters. Okay, and if I see this checkbox, it will not be unique, because it does not have its own unique ID and name. If I see this, its ID is component 1167, and this 1167 is dynamic, it changes all the time. So in that case what I'm going to do is, I'm simply, if I want to say okay, can you please remove your course title element, this thing if I want to remove, so that is the only thing is reliable, or these are the only differentiator between these two elements. If you see this, everything is similar except this label. Okay, this title. So in this case what I'm going to do is, I'm going to find out okay, where the course title is. Okay, so I'm going to say find out a span which is having thing course title. Okay, now if you see where this div is, so I'm going to say span, and that span has ancestor another span, and okay, sorry, it is referring to this wrong span. Let me put some better address. Yeah, so this is the course title that we are referring to. So this span has a parent called div, and that div also has a parent called another div. Okay, so from that point onwards what we are going to do is, we are going to find out inside this div this cross mark has to be somewhere. So let's find out where it is exactly. So we are going to say okay, from this span take its second ancestor. So this is your first ancestor, this is your second ancestor. Okay, so when you say an ancestor, it can be you can give specific tag also. So if you just give say third ancestor or fourth ancestor, you can specify third div, fourth div. So there can be something else inside it also, like anchor tag or something, and then it would be div has parent a, and then that a has parent div. Okay, so in that case you can say my second ancestor which is div. Okay, so this case you're going to say ancestor, and then colon, and then div, which div, second div. So it's gonna bring me here. Okay, now I'm going to say okay, from once I come here, now I can go to this cross mark. So I can say okay, this first div. Okay, so from this spans second ancestor, from that location I have immediate first div, I can say div. Okay, and then it's gonna point me to the checkbox. So that is how you can use ancestor. Okay, so the way we use is very much identical to how we use sibling. All you have to say is ancestor and then colon and then your element, like whatever ancestor you are referring to, and that it will go back, and from that point onwards it's gonna find out the element. It's like, you know, you, you are somewhere and then you are going back to some point, and then from that point you are moving to some another address. It's like that. Reliable thing for, you know, using a unique locator, but if the programming practice is not following the standard, it may not be very useful. If you want to click on some link or you want to do some kind of interaction with the link, you can use link locator. Okay, but that may not work in case of locale. Okay, locale is when your language is changing. Then we discuss about XPath. XPath can come in two way. One is absolute, that is point to point XPath. It will have, like, you know, it will start from your HTML tag to whatever tag it is right now. There's second type is known as relative XPath. So in relative XPath, what we do is, with respect to some particular web element which can be uniquely identified on a page, you start your you know, journey, or you can start your path from that particular unique location. So to write XPath, this is what the syntax is: double slash your tag name. Okay, if tag type, if you know what it is. If you don't know, simply put star. Then attribute, in case you want to find out id or class. Okay, so class is equal to hello, then it will look for something which is class is equal to hello. If it is id is equal to hello, then it will be id is equal to hello, like this. So it will look for this element like this. So any tag that contains id is equal to hello, it will refer to that web element. Then comes contains, starts with and end with. So sometime if I have a text which is changing, but some part of it is constant, so I can say contains, and inside the bracket I'm going to say the attribute. Okay, always make sure attribute should be prefixed with @ and once this is done, contains your attribute, and then the value, the small part of string that you feel is unique. In this case it's going to be name in this case. Okay, same thing can does work with starts with and ends with, where it will start with certain text or end with certain text. Sibling with what we discussed. So there are some element which are on the same level. Okay, so in that case what we can do is, we can use sibling to refer to the element which resides at the same element. So in this case we can see so this div, these are sibling. Okay, so if I can come to this div, then I can say this is my preceding sibling div, this is my following sibling div. Okay, that is how we say use sibling. Sometimes things are not at the same level but at hierarchical level. So take this example. So I have this div with call id 25, and if I want to from that point, if I want to refer to this id is equal to screen, which probably does not unique id, and then from that point I want to say whatever the sibling of this div, which is a form. Okay, I want to go here. So what I can do is, I can use ancestor. So I'm going to say, okay, go to the div which is id is equal to id 25, and from that pick its second ancestor div. So I'm going to say div 1, div 2, and I'm gonna use this ancestor, and from this I can say sibling form 1. Okay, so it will take me here. So that is how ancestors work. One more thing I forgot to cover, that if I'm not so much concerned about, you know, say after 2 div, any div say there's a anchor tag out here. Okay, So I will say div is equal to id screen. Let me take that example. Okay, so I'm gonna say id is equal to, what was it again, screen. Okay, so I'm going to say screen. So inside this, if I want to find out if there's, let me find out something. Gosh. Okay, there is an iframe. Okay, now I want to know that there is an iframe tag resides somewhere inside this thing. Now I don't know how deeper it is. There may be one div, two div, depending on this thing. So what I can do is I can simply ignore the exact path. I can simply say, okay, somewhere inside this id is equal to screen div, there's iframe. Okay, so I'm going to say double slash. Okay, so what it will do is it will look for all the childs. Okay, if there are it will dig down to each and every child, and it will find out iframe till it finds it. If there are multiple, it will settle on the first one. Okay, so double slash is another important thing. So if you say slash, it will stick to particular path and order. Double slash, that means it will look for anywhere inside this element. Okay, so if you see this beginning also, we have double slash. Double slash means anywhere on page, here, anywhere after this element. Okay, so that is how we define it. Then we discuss about position. So last is something, if you want to define, if you want to find out some element which is last, like last div of the page, or last pan of the tag, or last text box of the page. So in that case, last is helpful. Position, if you want to find out some position, like you want to say position is equal to 3 for particular div, so in that case it will refer to the third div, but same thing can be written as like this. So either I can say position is equal to 3, or I can write like this. Okay, then it's going to work perfectly fine here. So that is what it's all about XPath. There are a lot of things to explore in XPath. So what you can do is you can Google about XPath access. Okay, so let me show you some of the pages. If I have, yeah, so these are some of the XPath axis. It says ancestor, ancestor, self, child, descendant, following sibling, and there are a lot of things that are there. But whatever we discussed so far are sufficient, are more than enough here for us to use. Now one more thing I want to cover. So in Saba we are going to follow an attribute called data Saba ID. That data Saba ID is being injected as a part of EXT.js framework. So there are 3 framework which are used in Saba so far. Out of that, we have implemented this for EXT.js. So wherever EXT.js is implemented, you can see a custom attribute like this called data Saba ID. Okay, if you see this input field, it has this custom attribute data Saba ID is equal to name. Okay, that is what it is. So in case you don't have any unique way to identify it, and if you see this, most of the time it's gonna be used for automation only. So for that, what I have done is I have tweaked my fire path extension. I am going to share this. So what it does is it if you take your mouse, so it will give you the XPath with respect to data sub ID. It does not use ID, and it doesn't use wildcard. It will give you more precise XPath. So input and then data sub ID is equal to name. So if you you can simply copy this and use this in your program while automation. Don't forget to remove this dot if it does exist out there. In future we are going to use data sub ID everywhere for automation, but till then whenever you are going to find this, use it. Else you can go with other way we discussed so far. You can use ancestor sibling based on some text or some specific unique element. So that is it about XPath or locators, I would say so far. Thanks for watching the video.